Their analysis said we barely understood gravity. We let them believe it, right up until they insulted Grandma's fried chicken and challenged us to a mock war. The HFY ship descended over Earth with a kind of grace only arrogance could design. Sleek curves, pale metallic skin, and glowing glyphs along its hull, it hovered over the UN assembly in Geneva like a judgmental seagull eyeing a crust of bread. They called it the moment of illumination. We called it Thursday. Primitive, but promising, the lead HFY envoy had said, his voice gliding from a speaker orb like silk dragged over sandpaper. Carbon-based, bipedal, culturally fractured, yet full of potential. Their mistake wasn't calling us primitive. Their mistake was doing it to our face. Ambassador Jared Knox sat across from them in a navy suit, cowboy boots, and a smile that had confused more diplomats than any nuclear treaty. He sipped something suspiciously amber from a ceramic mug labeled, "World's Nicest War Criminal." The HFY delegation stood tall, lean, and overly scented. They resembled sea serpents carved from opal, each motion too smooth, too rehearsed. Primarch Tazix, their leader, was the tallest, wearing a shimmering sash of command and a look that screamed, "You should feel honored we even landed." Jared gave a slow, respectful nod. "Well, sir, we appreciate your visit. And your assessment. Though I'd argue we're more selectively advanced." Tazix blinked slowly, the alien equivalent of a smirk. "Your planetary conflicts suggest otherwise. You've waged over 1,000 internal wars since discovering fire." Jared set down his mug. "That's true. But we stopped using fire halfway through." A few snickers passed through the human observers behind the glass, but the HFY weren't laughing. They were here on official diplomatic invitation, though, as it turned out, their version of diplomacy leaned closer to cultural inspection with bonus smugness. "We wish to induct Earth into the fold of civilized systems," Tazix declared. "Though, due to your stage of development, you would be granted guardian species status. That is, a protectorate. For your safety." There it was, the leash in silk wrapping. "Kind of you," Jared said. "We're big fans of safety. Seat belts, helmets, fallout shelters." The Primarch continued. "And as tradition requires, we propose a demonstration of your tactical ability. A friendly skirmish simulation. One of our junior fleets will engage your best units in a controlled war game. Purely symbolic, of course." Jared's eyes twinkled. "Symbolic war. That's a new one." "Standard for primitives," the second HFY envoy muttered. "Your kind often conflate aggression with diplomacy." Jared leaned forward, just enough for his voice to carry the weight of something deeper. "And your kind often forget that smiling doesn't mean sleeping." There was a pause. Primarch Tazix ignored it. "We'll give you 3 Earth days to prepare. You may use any forces you choose. The location will be pre-selected, one of your less populated continents, yes." "Sure," Jared said. "Pick your sandbox." He stood, smoothing his suit, flashing a practiced, gentle smile. "But just one thing." Tazix raised an elegant brow ridge. "We'll be playing your game," Jared said. "But remember, we wrote a few rules of our own." The next morning, across news feeds and back-channel military forums, Earth buzzed with confusion. An alien fleet had challenged us to a simulation. Half the world laughed. The other half prepared. Jared wasn't laughing. He was on the phone with General Harmon of UNSOC, the United Nations Strategic Operations Command. "I want Ghost Team and the Stray Dogs ready," Jared said. "No big guns. Just ground teams, silent comms, old school." Harmon's voice came through gruff and grinning. "Going low-tech? You're serious? Deadly. They're expecting drones and clean formations. Laser tag in a desert." Jared's tone sharpened. "They think we're children. Let's remind them who grew up in the dark." By the end of day 3, the HFY had built a temporary base in the Namib Desert, walls of shimmering light, modular towers, anti-personnel drones humming overhead. The human response arrived 6 hours late in 3 rusty transport planes. From the alien observation deck, several species, Velthrin, Groln, and Zari among them, watched with mild curiosity. The humans disembarked slowly. No exosuits. No orbital support. Just boots, beat-up gear, and a few men and women sipping from canteens like it was a Sunday barbecue. Tazix looked displeased. "This is their elite? Looks like tourists," someone muttered. "They brought knives," another said, incredulous. From the base perimeter, a young Ensari cadet observed one particular human kneeling in the sand, dragging a stick through the dust. "What is he doing?" the cadet asked. Jared looked up from his improvised sketch of the battlefield and replied calmly, "Playing." "Playing? Yeah. We used to do this as kids. Draw where we wanted the enemy to go." The cadet tilted his head. "But that's not strategy." Jared smiled wider. "Exactly." In the last hour before simulation start, alien officers finalized their formations: hover units, AI-controlled recon drones, auto-adjusting barricades. The humans sat under a tarp, playing cards and betting rations. 2 minutes, a voice called. Jared tapped his earpiece. "Dogs, you ready?" A grizzled voice crackled back. "Waiting for the bell, boss." "Ghosts. Already in their kitchen." The simulation started. Within 7 minutes, the Ensari base lost half its drone fleet. Not shot down, rewired. One dive-bombed its own tower. Another jammed comms by looping emergency broadcasts in ancient Greek. By minute 10, human teams emerged from the sand behind the alien rearguard, not attacking, just walking through, tagging units with silent paint rounds. A few aliens tried to recalibrate. A few ran. Jared stood beside Tazix in the control room, sipping his ever-present mug. "You tagged my command tent," Tazix said flatly. 15 seconds in, Jared confirmed. "We went for psychological impact." "How?" "Bribed one of your repair bots with a magnet and a looped message from a toaster." Tazix stared. "Primitive species," Jared added with a shrug. "We get creative." By simulation end, the Ensari had lost every unit without a single human casualty. Not from firepower, from manipulation. Sabotaged logistics. Misdirected coordinates. Decoys. Fake transmissions in the voice of the alien general himself. And one particularly offensive use of recorded Ensari opera as a distraction. As the scoreboards lit up, the room went silent. Jared set down his mug. "We don't fight fair," he said, voice casual, but cold beneath the surface. "We fight to win." Tazix could barely manage a reply. "You were supposed to demonstrate, not humiliate." Jared gave a half shrug. "Sorry. That was us holding back." The aftermath felt colder than the desert night. The Ensari base lay silent, still pulsing with light, but hollow. No alarms, no strategy chatter, no confident posturing. Just the sting of realization soaking into every slitted eye and scaled hand. Primach Tazix stood in the middle of the control center, arms behind his back, jaw rigid. The observation deck, once bustling with chatter from allied species, had emptied without ceremony. Even the Velthrin, notorious for feasting over failures, had quietly slipped away. "They didn't destroy us," whispered Cadet Vax, his voice tight. "They dismantled us. Like they were bored." Tazix said nothing. Beside him, Ambassador Jared Knox leaned against a display terminal, flipping through a leather-bound notebook. No holograms. No AI. Just pen and paper, his preferred weapon, second only to misdirection. "You're not used to losing," Jared said. Still nothing from Tazix. "Don't take it personal. The last empire that underestimated us needed 2 centuries to grow back a navy." The Primach finally turned. "You embarrassed the fold." Jared's eyebrows lifted. "You mean the fold of civilized systems? That self-congratulating club with 10,000 bylaws and 0 imagination. You were meant to be assessed." "And we assessed you," Jared replied, sharp now. "Your tech is impressive. Your structures airtight. But your mindsets. Predictable. Linear. Fragile. Vax's gills flared. We followed the simulation rules. Jared leaned forward. So did we. You just didn't expect the rules to bend when applied to us. Later that night, on the tarmac beside the beaten-up human transport planes, Jared met with General Harmon under the roar of loading equipment. "How's the press spinning it?" Jared asked. "Mixed," Harmon replied. "Earth's thrilled. The folds rattled. We've had 37 encrypted messages from alien systems wanting clarification. Translation: they're scared." "Good," Harmon said. "They should be. What now?" Jared looked out toward the distant shimmer of the NSARI base. "Now we invite them to dinner." Harmon blinked. "Dinner. Politeness is the final threat." The following day, a reception was hosted in Geneva. Not at a military compound, nor in any ultra-secure UN chamber, but in a weathered stone hall built centuries ago. Candles, hardwood floors, tapestries of battles long past. It was deliberate. Jared greeted each alien guest personally. No translators. No AI protocol droids. Just human hosts, fluent in dialects and dangerously charming. Tazix arrived last. He scanned the room like he expected a trap under the appetizer tray. Jared welcomed him with a glass of red wine. "This one's from a vineyard that survived 3 wars, 2 meteor strikes, and 1 divorce settlement." Tazix didn't take it. Jared sipped his own. "Still suspicious?" "You humiliated a superior power." "That wasn't humiliation," Jared replied smoothly. "That was education." They took seats at the long wooden table. Human historians, strategists, engineers, and even a few soldiers mingled with Fold representatives. Despite the warmth of the lighting and soft music in the background, tension danced behind every smile. Halfway through the first course, Tazix leaned toward Jared. "Why hide your advancement?" Jared's answer came quietly. "We didn't hide it. We grew it in silence. You just never looked past the surface. You broadcast cave paintings and folk music to the galaxy. We also built ships that fly without fuel and weapons that think before they fire. You kept those secret?" Jared shook his head. "We kept them unnecessary. As long as you thought we were behind, you kept your distance. That gave us time. And in time, we learned the difference between power and fear." The table fell silent for a beat too long. Then, from the far end, a Groln ambassador spoke. "You're not a young species. You're a quiet one." Jared nodded. "Exactly." That evening, in a private corridor after the reception, Tazix cornered him. "I read your historical files. You once detonated your own cities." "We did." "You sacrificed millions." "We learned from it." Tazix's voice dropped. "You are a dangerous species." Jared's eyes darkened. "Only when necessary." "What are you, really?" Jared took a breath, then gave a simple, terrible truth. "We are what happens when curiosity survives conflict. When instinct learns patience. When predators build libraries instead of pyramids of skulls." Tazix blinked. "And if provoked?" Jared didn't smile this time. "Then you'll meet the part of us that builds pyramids again, but this time with surgical precision." Back in orbit, as the NSARI flagship prepared to leave, Cadet Vax reviewed the final tactical report. A quiet tension gripped the bridge. "They could have wiped us out," he said aloud. Tazix didn't respond at first. Then, as he stared down at the blue and green planet beneath them, he muttered, "They chose not to." That silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. Time. Observation. Patience sharpened into precision. "They're not a junior species," Tazix concluded. "They're a mirror. And the Fold should be afraid of what it sees." Ambassador Jared Knox stepped into the Fold High Tribunal Central Chamber like a man invited to his own trial. Chin high, smile effortless, hands empty. The chamber was carved into a massive rotating asteroid at the edge of neutral space. Rings of silver columns held up an open ceiling where the stars spun silently. Around him sat 24 species, some biological, some synthetic, all powerful. This wasn't a meeting. This was judgment masked as diplomacy. Counselor Erix of the Velthrin, whose skin shifted with his mood, opened the floor with a snarl. You defied the purpose of the War Simulation Treaty. Jared remained seated, legs crossed. Which clause did we violate? A low growl rolled through the room. Counselor Zun of the Ensariai flicked his fronds irritably. You introduced unpredictable variables. Human strategies didn't follow any known combat logic. It undermined the intent of the simulation. Let me translate that, Jared said, eyes steady. You mean we won in ways you didn't anticipate? You used psychological warfare in a training exercise, Counselor Erix snapped. We used intelligence, Jared replied. You created a test. We treated it as real. That's the difference. The chamber fell quiet for a moment. Then the grown representative, a massive creature with eyes like frozen lakes, asked flatly, Are all humans trained this way? Jared shrugged. No. Only the ones who survived the first decade of adulthood. Laughter echoed, not from amusement, but disbelief. Behind the scenes, encrypted networks lit up. Across galactic space, human behavior analysts, alien strategists, and war planners dissected every moment of the simulation. How had Earth's smaller fleet crippled a combined armada? Why did their soldiers retreat when victory seemed certain, only to strike from behind hours later? Why did their generals speak in riddles but achieve perfect clarity in outcomes? The answer kept surfacing in whispers. They planned for loss, not just victory. They didn't fear the unknown, they used it. On Earth, General Harmon stood before the Defense Assembly's black glass table. They're rattled, he said. But not finished. They'll test us again, this time without rules. Across the table, Director Ava Chan of Strategic Intelligence leaned forward. Then we prepare a second message. One they can't ignore. Harmon nodded. Containment's over. We play open now. Meanwhile, Jared sat in a quiet lounge of the tribunal complex, watching the cosmos roll past the observation window. Tazix entered without announcement. You are enjoying this far too much, the Ensariai Primarch said. Jared sipped from his coffee mug. If you think this is joy, you haven't seen me play chess. Tazix folded his arms. You provoke a response you may not contain. That's the point. We want a response. Why? Jared's expression hardened slightly. Because Earth was ignored. For centuries, we were dismissed as primitive. You fed us scraps of tech. Laughed at our conflicts. Labeled us as a curiosity. You were, Jared repeated. Past tense. He leaned forward. You made the mistake every old empire makes. You thought survival came from control. We learned it came from adaptation. That's why our species has no single template. Our cultures contradict each other. Our doctrines shift. Our generals disagree. And still, we win. Tazix studied him, silent. We're not here to challenge the fold, Jared added. We're here to remind it that peace doesn't mean stagnation, and survival doesn't mean comfort. You want war. Jared shook his head. We want relevance. We want respect. And we want a seat at the table built without us. That night, across the networks of dozens of worlds, a transmission went live. It wasn't official. It wasn't from Earth's government or military. It was a message from a human child, 12 years old, broadcast from a classroom, recorded by accident, now spreading like wildfire. If the aliens come and try to fight us again, I think we'll win. Not 'cause we're big. We're not. But because we try again. Every time we mess up, we get smarter. Even if it hurts. Even if we cry. We learn. That's what humans do. By the time the fold blocked the stream, it had reached 47 systems. It was too late. In the tribunal chamber the next morning, the tone had changed. No more accusations. Now came the offers. We'd like a demonstration of your anti-stealth sensor technology, one counselor said. We'd welcome joint exercises in orbital defense, another offered. Even Tazix seemed to have recalibrated. Perhaps it's time we revised the treaties. With your input. Jared smiled faintly. Now we're talking. But as he turned to leave, he paused at the threshold. One more thing, he said. All eyes shifted back. We never wanted to be feared. But if fear is the only language you understand, then let us be fluent. And he walked out, leaving 24 species wondering whether they had just witnessed the rise of a new galactic doctrine, or the beginning of something they had no words for. Space above the Varelian Quorum world was pristine. No fleets, no defense grid, no signs of hostility. On paper, it was neutral ground. In practice, it was a stage. Human Ambassador Jared Knox stood on a floating platform high above the surface, staring at a diplomatic ring of stone and glass suspended in orbit by gravity anchors. 12 representatives hovered in transparent pods, spaced equidistantly. Not quite a council, more like a jury waiting for guilt. Jared adjusted his collar. No weapon, no guards. Just a translator unit, a pulse reader, and his infamous smile. Shall we begin? He said. The voice of Counselor Drev, a low-chord resonant species of the Malgari, rumbled across the open space. You came alone. Earth's message doesn't need backup. You presume safety? I presume attention, Jared replied. Another voice joined, sharp, calculated. You speak of attention, yet Earth threatens with implication rather than declaration. That was the Kirill diplomat. Cold-blooded, cold-voiced. Their species had once colonized 3 sectors with silence and sudden death. Jared nodded slowly. Yes. We do imply. But implication isn't a threat. It's a mirror. What you see in it, that's your own fear talking. You see yourself as a mirror? The Kirill asked, amused. No. We're the crack in yours. Across the galaxy, things were no longer theoretical. On the shard moons of Ulrith, a fold weapons facility suffered a systems collapse. Diagnostic data revealed nothing. No sign of a hack, virus, or sabotage. Just sudden entropy. Untraceable. In the ice vaults of Desert 5, a prototype Fold AI suddenly stopped responding. Later, it began repeating a human nursery rhyme, translated through 37 languages, before self-terminating. And in the trade corridors near the Relon Expanse, 3 pirate fleets independently chose to avoid Earth-aligned convoys. Not because they feared retaliation, but because none of their scouts ever returned. Not even wreckage. It wasn't war. It wasn't diplomacy. It was presence. And it was growing. Back on the platform, the Malgari counselor shifted. What does Earth want, then? Jared didn't answer immediately. He let the silence build, not as intimidation, but precision. Every second was fuel. Not conquest, he said. We don't need your worlds. Another pause. Not servitude. We have no interest in ruling systems we don't understand. Final pause. What we want, what we demand, is the thing we were denied for 300 years. Consideration. Drev leaned forward slightly. Explain. Jared held up a small cube. Inside, a looping projection began to play. Earth's first interstellar broadcast. A transmission from a forgotten station in orbit, barely encoded. An invitation. Your species received this. You ignored it. You labeled us unready. Yet you studied us. Took samples. Cloaked ships in orbit for decades. We were livestock to you. The Fold had protocols. You had arrogance, Jared cut in. A flash of offense stirred among the delegates. Jared's expression didn't waver. You watched our wars, our struggles, our innovations. But when we made our own slipstream, you panicked. Not because of what it was, but because we built it without you. That was your mistake. No one interrupted. Jared continued. And now, after all your judgment, Earth walks among you, not to kneel, not to beg, but to speak plainly. In a secure fold communications hub, Tazik stood before a projected map of Earth-aligned activity. It had grown like ivy, spread not through battles, but relationships. Small species, fringe colonies, outcasts, all quietly shifting allegiance. "It's not military," his aide said quietly. "It's philosophical." Tazik nodded. "The humans aren't building an empire. They're offering a way out." "Out of what?" "The stagnation we mistook for peace." On the platform, Jared now walked slowly in a circle. "We're not asking for a seat out of pride. We're here because every council decision, every fold action, ripples. And humans, we feel those ripples more than most. You want influence. I want accountability." The room bristled again. "Your treaties don't account for people like us. You've made bureaucracy into armor and labeled it diplomacy." "And if we refuse?" Jared smiled politely. "Then we'll build our own council. With those who've been left behind." Councillor Drev leaned back. "You threaten a schism." "No," Jared said calmly. "I'm offering a mirror again. Look into it." Later that evening, as the stars wheeled above him, Jared sat alone in his temporary quarters aboard the orbiting station. A quiet chime rang. A coded signal, not from Earth, but from Fold Prime. He accepted it. Director Ava Chen's face appeared, sharp and focused. "You did it." Jared exhaled. "They're shaken but not broken. They won't act yet." "They don't have to." Chen raised an eyebrow. "They've already started discussing what a shared council seat would look like. That means they're trying to define us. And once they try to define you—" Jared nodded, finishing her thought. "They realize they can't." A pause. "And if they push back?" Jared's voice dropped to a whisper. "Then we remind them." 3 days later, the Fold Council released an unprecedented joint statement. Humanity shall be provisionally recognized as a sovereign strategic entity, with observer status and advisory rights, under Fold Treaty 7.12. Amendments pending. Most of the galaxy skimmed the announcement. A few species celebrated. A few seethed. But in shadowed bunkers, in encrypted forums, in simulation rooms buried under oceans and ice moons, military planners scrambled to understand the truth behind a single, terrifying question. What was humanity preparing for next? They'd granted Earth a voice. Now they would hear what it had to say. And it would echo.